justice for all.
Good morning. Welcome to this February 20th Board of Commissioners meeting. First item is public comment. Do we have anyone here for public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll move right on. We have Cheyenne Taylor with a Humane Society update. Good morning, Cheyenne.
Let me give you guys copies. We brought enough commissioners.
they're fine.
You can sit down too if you want to. Just sit down. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
So I'm just here to kind of go over the stats. Since it's the first one I've been to this year, I'm going to kind of go over our 2023 stats in a little bit more detail, but I also have like our 2022, 2021 stats just real quick so we can see like, what our numbers look like and how they've changed over the last few years. But I'll wait till everyone has their copy. Sorry, there's 2 pages with each one. Sorry.
Yep.
I should have stapled them, but I thought it'd be easier if I didn't.
Thank you.
Okay, so for in and out stats, this means the total number of dogs and cats we had in. There are some random pigs and things like that, but these are our total stats for the last few years. So in 2021, we had a total intakes of 621 and total out is 737. Now you're probably wondering like how is the out more than the in, and that's because we started with animals rolled over from the year before, just so I touch base on that. 2022, we had total intakes of 653, so only about 30 more than 2021, and then total out was the exact same at 737. But as you can see in 2023, it's a total different ball game. We doubled, so our intakes were 1,215 and our outtakes were 1,192. So that just shows you the increased amounts of strays we've been getting in and things like that. So we doubled, so that's obviously the most we've ever had there before. But at least our outs are pretty close to it, so we didn't do too bad, I don't think. In-house today, we have 17 total dogs, which is one of our all-time lows. We've been able to keep it at under 25 since COVID, thankfully. And then total cats, we have 52. If I would have been here a month or 2 ago, though, that would have been doubled for sure. But thankfully, the cat intake usually goes down between November and February, but kitten season is about to happen, so it's going to be in full swing again soon. So we're taking advantage of having the open spots. And then we have 49 dogs and cats that are actually in foster to adopt. This is a program that we do so that basically if somebody comes in and they find a dog or cat that they're interested in, if they're not completely done with their medical workup, we let them leave in foster to adopt until they're done with everything. Then they finalize and pay for the animal, and then they're considered adopted. But if we didn't do this, that would be 49 more cats and dogs that we would have in-house that we don't have to. So that's great. And that Pet Supplies Plus, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but we do have an adoption room there, so we do have 2 cats there available for adoption as well. On top of the adoption room, they also raise donations for us. People buy bags of food, cat food, put it in a bin for us, and we pick it up, which is pretty awesome. And then I want to cover AC. So we do now have 3 employees total covering AC calls, which is great. I don't think we've ever had 3 before. So we do have a new girl. Her name is Kaylee White. She also works in-house, but she is Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. She goes on all calls. Mallory Martin covers Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. to 8 a.m. So she goes on emergency calls, police requests, hit by car, injured, anything like that. And then Owen Lucas does Saturday and Sunday. His Saturday from 8 to 5 is any call, but after 5 p.m. Saturday through Sunday, it's emergency only or police requests. And then I did go ahead and break down the stats for 2023 AC calls so you guys can kind of see what all we have responded to. But for 2023, we responded to 563 calls. So I broke those down, but I do have under those the calls that we responded to in 2022 and 21. We definitely had the most this year at 563, but 2022 it was 413, and 2021 it was 341. And that also may have played a part on us not having AC available some of the time too, I would assume. And then fundraising, want to touch base. We had our spaghetti dinner on February 10th of 2024 at the fairgrounds. It was a fundraiser that we did for spaying and neutering. It was a great turnout. We sold 300 tickets and also had over 40 people show up and pay their way in without a ticket, which was great. And then I know we've talked to you guys about how the board of directors does the Colts games for every year. They do the home games. It's a really long, drooling day for them, sometimes 8 to 10 hours. So a couple board members went to Purdue this past week and spoke with them about doing their home games for sports because it's just a little bit easier travel-wise and stuff. But I just wanted to kind of touch base on some fundraising stuff we've been doing too to save money. But I'm open to any questions you guys have or anything that I missed.
Okay. Gentlemen? No.
I don't have any questions, but it's it's pretty obvious the trend is up for
Yeah.
in and out, animal control.
Crazy.
everything.
Yeah.
big time.
So I'm really happy that we have 3 AC officers now
Yeah.
because, I mean, you can't miss one of them. Somebody's on duty at all times, so it's pretty awesome. But yeah, the intakes, when I even did those, I was like, I knew that we had a lot more this year than we have the last few years, but I didn't know it was doubled. But our staff has done a great job. Taking care of them, keeping them healthy, getting them moved out. We promote like crazy. I think it's a lot about online promoting, Paw Pals, things like that. But yeah, so I'm hoping it's not that high for this year, but it very well could be, or it could be more. So
Why do you think it was so high?
I think it's probably so many stray cats in all of our surrounding cities in the county. There's just so many, and we will take them if they're friendly. We cannot deal with ferals because we just get absolutely annihilated by them, and we have no proper way of housing them. But if they're friendly, we will get them in, and most of the time they come in sickly or injured, so we're putting money into them as well.
You don't happen to have the breakdown between city and county of the?
I can definitely get that for you.
Okay, I think we'd be interested in knowing
Yeah.
that breakdown.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
Yeah, definitely.
is there anyone else that has any questions here about it or comments? It's been a hot topic for us. So.
Yeah, I know. I feel like we're
Open
finally
it up.
getting it under control now, but yeah, it has been.
Okay. I don't have anything else. You
I
two?
do not. No, thank you, Cheyenne.
No,
Thank you, guys.
Okay, we'll kind of jump around because we need to wait till 9:15 to open the demo bids and then 9:20 for the lawn care bids. So I will go to Renee Crick with approval to fill a vacant position.
Good morning. So I ran into Jordan and Bert last week before the council meeting, and I woke up in the middle of the night and realized that I did not come to you before we posted our job posting on Indeed. So I own that. I apologize for that. I don't like to make mistakes, but I'm here before you to ask permission for that. So just to kind of let you know, because we do, moving into later this year, we have 4 new positions. They will be dispatched. There's nothing new. They'll have the same job description. But to kind of let you know what we're thinking, we currently have 2 that we need to fill immediately. And the third, I would like to do the third. We have, obviously, all of it in our budget. But the third one, she's not been able to work since August, and we're going to have more positions. So if she is able to come back once she is recovered, and we don't know a timeline on that, unfortunately. So I would like permission to go ahead and hire 3 out of this position. Then we would still have 3 more later that I would come back before you. That still is everything that was budgeted for. But I think Chris and I met with our shift supervisors last week, and we really need to get back at least 3 started right away and get training, because training can take 3 to 4 months. And that's a long process, and we've got a long year ahead of us still. So I would ask permission to hire 3.
Okay, very good. Questions, gentlemen? Nope. Thank you for coming. Renee.
Okay, thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Yep.
We'll make a motion here and move forward with it, so.
So moved.
Second.
All right.
Okay,
Good,
thank
thank you. So we'll approve the 3, and then Renee will come back for the other 3. All right. Next, we have Kelly Moore with a grant policy and procedure update, or I guess this would be the introduction, really.
Introduction. Yeah. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Did you guys receive copies of?
Yep.
Okay, you're good. Okay. So one of the first things that we wanted to do with the start of the grant program was to put some policies and procedures in place, since this will be brand new for everybody. So I've created a grant policy and procedures document. Did a lot of reaching out to different surrounding agencies and the National Grant Management Association, kind of working on making sure we included everything we wanted to include. So the policy and procedure itself just kind of outlines the purpose and the flow of what we would want the process to look like when a department's applying for a grant. And then it also outlines kind of primary responsibilities for each department that will touch the grant. So the department heads, myself, the commissioners, the auditor, the council. And then in addition to that, I wanted to do something that would be a little more streamlined so that each time a department head applies for a grant, it's a little bit easier to track and make sure we check everything that needs to be done and in what order. So there's a grant process guide that I created as well, just more of like a checklist form. Kind of outlines things that maybe the department heads will do, things that I will do, and then leaves room for us to have a conversation together to say, does a department head want to do that part? Do you want me to do it? Because I think each department will operate a little bit differently depending on how they do their grants now. So I'm just trying to put some foundation in place for the grant process.
Okay. Questions?
No, sir.
None.
So you'll distribute these to all the department heads?
Yes.
But also you'll have copies of it in your office area, so if someone has a question, can
Yes.
get it? Okay,
Yep, I'll send the attachments in an email to all the department heads.
okay. All right, I have no issue with it. I think it's going to provide some clarity where we sometimes don't always have clarity.
Yeah, especially being just new for all of us, I felt like it'd be good for us all to have some place to go when we're not sure. And I did reach out, I think last week, to all the department heads to start scheduling a meeting with each of them. I offered 2 weeks in March where we could just sit down together for 30 minutes or so and go through that policy and procedure, the forms. I can gather any information and ask them questions as well.
Okay, very good. Well, I guess I'll entertain a motion that we adopt the grant policies and procedures so that it's official here.
So moved.
Second.
Motion carries 3-0. So the policies and procedures are in place for the department heads, and work through Kelly to get a hold of those, or she'll send them to you and kind of go from there. So,
Thank you.
all right,
Can I
thanks.
add one other thing
Yeah.
that's not really related? Stephen and I communicated last week, and he did apply for the Narcan through the Department of Health. They distribute Narcan. So he applied for that. He received it. He's going to be getting, I believe, 40 doses. So no funding needed. It was just a quick little online application, and he was awarded that. So,
Okay.
and he did a great job with keeping in touch about that. So just want to make sure you knew those were coming to him.
Great, thank you. Okay. Have a couple more minutes till we can open the bids. So Rick, I'll have you go because I think Liz may be more tied into with the bids, right, for the update, so.
Morning.
Morning, Rick.
We had to plow a little bit of snow over the weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And we took Monday off, so we're cleaning stuff up today and getting ready to start hauling stone again. I have a couple papers for Bridge 21, it's out the right of way that I need Jordan to sign.
Bring them up here, we'll probably get them after the, yeah, we'll look at it, so.
I think that's all I've got. Thank you.
Okay, any questions for Rick?
Thanks,
No,
Rick.
no.
No?
Didn't take long enough.
No, he didn't. Rick, so this is no financial payment for the right-of-way, though, right? Okay, it's just to permission to additional, all right, yep. Okay. I'll turn it over, yeah, we're right there, so I'll turn it over to Tom for the demo bids.
So for the demo bids, it looks like we have two. One from A&R Home and Garden Plus Services, and the other one from Right Now We're Excavating. So open up the first one. All right, so, and this is for the demolition and removal of debris at the address of 9472 East County Road, 600 North of Forest. From A&R Home and Garden Plus, it's $10,000. All right, so this is the same address from Right Now Excavating LLC, $14,000.
Okay. Oh,
I'll make a motion to take those under consideration, make a decision at our next meeting.
second. All right, motion carries 3-0. The bids are up there. If anyone wants to look at them, we'll make a decision at our next meeting here. So that kind of leads us into Liz. Related to that, I'm sure, and then maybe some other APC stuff.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Jordan. So yeah, related to that, just by way of update, and Kat had emailed you guys last week, but we have had contact. Mr. Moore has hired an attorney, which is actually a good thing. Oftentimes, I find in violations when an attorney gets involved, they're good about helping to balance and help a client understand like what the repercussions are and the importance of finding a solution that works for everybody. So that attorney has stated that he will be working with his client, Mr. Moore, and will be submitting some paperwork with a proposed plan for compliance. We got the impression either end of this last week, which we didn't see anything, or this week we'd be receiving something. So as soon as we get that, we'll forward it to you and then have that ready for conversation, whatever the context may be, at the next meeting.
Okay.
So just wanted to update you as to that fact. And we did have contact directly from the attorney, so stating that he is representing him. So I think that's all I have on
On that?
particular case, other than I'll get copies of those bids, and there's only 2 of them, but I can still make sure that everything's in order and that they're apples to apples.
Okay,
So,
that works. I'll pause for a second. I know Mr. Cole had asked, is there anything you'd like to, if so,
I didn't really know what I was.
can you go to the mic, Mr. Cole, please? Sorry. That way it's recorded on YouTube.
I didn't really know what was expected. I didn't know if I was going to come in here and try to plead, my case again. I knew I didn't need to plead it to you guys because I've done that, and you guys have already ruled on this. My thing is if he was going to be here with his lawyer, I guess kind of not so much pleading my case to him and his lawyer as much as just reiterating things that I have said in the past with like, it's been almost 6 years.
Yeah.
And
Lack of compliance.
yeah, and he hasn't finished anything that he started, and deadlines should mean something.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's basically all I really had was that property owners around there should get some kind of benefit from not having to have an eyesore sitting right there that's tearing our property, values down. Is basically all I kind of had. So I was going to kind of direct that at him and his lawyer as kind of a pleading with how much longer are you going to keep this going. So that's all I had.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
It sounds like next meeting, not whether they attend or not, they'll get the opportunity to speak, but we'll review the bids and go from there. So you may want to come back.
Oh, I will.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you.
okay, I have one other item that I at least want to introduce. So I think I alluded to this at your last meeting, that and I talked to Jordan about it, but we're trying something a little bit different, and if it works well, I think the intention would be to start to have some of our zoning complaints that if we fail to obtain compliance through the courts, we bring back through the commissioners to try to obtain compliance. The difference being the Plan Commission, we can apply very, very large fines, and we can go through full bench trials. However, our fines go against the individual. So if an individual doesn't have a job or doesn't have, they're not complying and they're not in a position where we can garnish, those sort of sit there. And we generally do collect them ultimately. They sit for decades and hang out. In fact, a fairly large one just got paid last week on a case from almost a decade ago. So we do see that happen, but we aim mainly for compliance. The difference with your ordinance is you're actually able to place, while your fine amounts are smaller, direct tax liens, meaning that a landowner then is forced to comply or pay it or lose the property through tax sale to someone who may be willing to comply. So this particular case is up on 1,000 North. And, well, it may not have for you, it's generated quite a bit of attention over the last 6 months to a year. I know the assessor's office has had an appeal from a neighbor wanting reduction of property taxes because of the junk a half mile down the road, some things like that have come up in different governmental boards. We were in court the last time on this one, the first week of February, I believe. And at which point the judge did apply a rather large fine, given the situation. It's a $3,000 fine. And then there's a final 90-day compliance window for the homeowner. And what usually happens with that is it's sort of a reverse motivation. If the homeowner does finally comply, then the judge will reduce that fine somewhat. Otherwise, it stands and goes in the clerk's office as a judgment. And then we can start over again with another case for additional fines or look at something injunctive. However, in this case, we felt like it might be more effective to see if the commissioners, if you'd be willing to assist us with your ordinance, because of the way you can leverage directly against the property itself, irregardless of who the owner is. So this situation was a house fire originally. It was a complete loss, and it's been more than a year since it happened. It did ultimately generate complaints, as it wasn't cleaned up. I've got some pictures of what the property looks like this month that I'll float up there so you can take a look at.
What's the address, Liz?
It's 9433 West County Road 1000 North. It's north of Rossville, kind of off to the side where 1000 doesn't go through. Back on December 22nd, after I talked to Jordan, we went ahead and sent a letter to the landowner on Commissioner's letterhead. We quoted it under property maintenance 301.3, 302.8, and 302.9. Those all regard the way in which vacant land is kept when there's not a house, and also disabled vehicles. There's some motorhomes there that are not plated that have kind of been plaguing us as well. The landowner did receive the posting, and then when he was in court, Kat reminded him that this action was going to come up for the first time for discussion this morning, and that it was a separate action than the court case with different powers. And then she sent him a follow-up letter February 13th, just reiterating that this would come up for discussion this morning, and that it is a different enforcement process than the area plans process through court, and thus not an extension of Judge Hunter's action, but something completely separate. So we wanted to make sure you guys knew we've worked really hard to make sure that that's clear, and the landowner knows that there's two different things that are going on. With that said, the judge has given it kind of 90 days, so I think there's two options that I would look at requesting, depending on your pleasure. You have the ability to levy fines that, if not paid, go on the property tax rolls. Your first fine has to be between $100 and $250. It's really pretty small for starting out, and it sort of kicks off your process. So the most I would request this morning, especially given, where we are in other enforcement, would be that you would consider an initial fine for lack of compliance, which would then put you in a position the next time it's discussed to look at a slightly larger set of fines against that property tax roll. The other option that would seem to be on the table is to kind of wait for a moment until he gets past the 90 days with Judge Hunter and see whether or not compliance has arrived at, or if it continues to be outstanding. The reason we went ahead and sent the letter is we wanted to get this process started here, as well as there are a number of nearby houses. And really, our goal is finding a way to get this cleaned up. That's really what we're after, and the hopes that through the commissioner's fines, which go against the tax rules, the landowner would begin to be confronted with the fact that not complying is either going to cause him to lose the property or cause him to spend a whole lot more, in order to maintain ownership of the property, which I would hope would then motivate ultimately cleanup. The goal isn't to take someone's property. The goal really is to motivate them to get it cleaned up and maintain it as vacant ground until such time as they're ready to rebuild or, whatever the next use is for that.
Are they living in the mobile home or
So they were at one point in time, but we believe we have that resolved. We do now, as of the last court date, have an alternative address for the landowner where they do seem to be at, over on 830 East. So it appears that the owner is no longer living on the site in the RVs and has relocated to another dwelling.
Okay. So, I guess for us, Liz put out two options to consider, or we don't want to do anything. Those would kind of be the three options that.
That picture's old, the house is still there. Sorry.
Nope, you're fine. So, I guess I'll open it up for discussion on which direction you'd like to pursue.
What's been the demeanor of the people? Are they,
So I haven't been in court. Kat has been with them, so she's mostly interacted. But my understanding is, they generally just continue to request more time, but they're not actually cleaning anything up. And the Judge Hunter, Kat said, is kind of losing patience with it as well, as this point at which he finally enforced fines was several court dates in, where they'd been in front of him and he'd given extensions for them to clean up. Obviously, we're across winter, but this started well before winter. And there hasn't been, there really just hasn't been movement. He hasn't been combative in any way that I'm aware of. According to Kat, he's been respectful and, he interacts. They were able to have a conversation after the court case about the differences between this line of enforcement and the plan commissions without issue. It's just not been resulting in actual cleanup, which is really what we need.
Any other thoughts? I think I would lean towards initiating the $100 fine, because then we get the ball rolling, let it play out for 90 days, see what happens in the courts, but we've already established our process, and then if we need to get in, I think we did this on another one where we issued this fine here recently, didn't we?
Not sure if recently, but we've had some. I know there was one on
This
Farmers
fall,
Gravel that
last
we
fall.
fought with that that we sort of initiated a process with, and that one ultimately got torn down by the landowner. So
I would be in favor of the $100 fine at this point in time. Hopefully that would initiate some action cleanup in the next 90 days.
and what we do with that is we send a letter letting them know that they've received a fine and giving them a period of time to pay that. It's usually 30 days. Then if they don't pay it, then we send it on to Tom to file as a tax lien.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Second.
All right, motion carries 3-0.
Okay. Perfect. I will follow up on that. I appreciate it. Hopefully, the goal is to try to get them to clean it up. So hopefully that's where we end up. If we're able to use this to help, gain some success, then we may have one or two other cases that have been through, the other process and dead-ended that may be worth conversing about. But it's kind of unusual that we don't have one that we're able to get some kind of resolution for, especially when you start talking about, some of our fines can get up close to $12,000, which is usually very motivating, to landowners. So I appreciate your consideration.
Yep. I do have one item to bring up. I've had some people up in the Hardy Hills area reach out. I know they've been flagging the trees or the shrubbery.
Correct.
Same.
And there's just some concern about, not initially, but future, where they're placed, of creating some blind corners of intersections, which I know we talk about. And
Yeah.
in the summer, we have corn that gets cut down so that people can see. So I think we just need to take a look at that and have that in consideration when we, if the road's like this, we can't have the trees come into a.
Correct.
L.
There's a setback in the ordinance that they'll have to follow. And yeah, we do have to be mindful of what those trees are going to be at adulthood, not just what they're at now. Now, some, oaks and things like that, they're not going to have a lot of low-lying shrubbery, but others like an evergreen, obviously that's a completely different scenario. So we'll be looking at that. I anticipate we're going to have a lot of hours in inspections. I have had some contact from some landowners. Now, most of mine have been people who they're receiving payments as leaseholders who now are realizing there's going to be landscaping and they don't want landscaping. But unfortunately, what I've explained is the landscaping requirement is there to protect those who are not receiving payments, who live in that area. Somebody who has a lease, it's no difference to us. They can move fences back, or if they don't want to lease a part of their land, then they need to work through their lease agreement on, with the leaseholder on what areas Invenergy is permitted to use or not permitted to use. But an industrial solar project does have to have screening for neighboring landowners. I've let them know they can apply for a variance, but if the affected landowner who's being screened is not supportive, that may be a difficult request to find that there's no harm, given the situation on the two sides. But the landscaping's not there for the leaseholders who are receiving payments. It's there for the neighborhood that's affected but surrounding. So, we've been working through some of that. Now that landscaping has to be aligned between the fence and either the road or the house that is screening. Doesn't necessarily have to set X number of foot from the fence. So the thing that nor does it have to be exactly evenly spaced, like a tree every X number of feet. They have flexibility in those areas. So something that we would anticipate, working with them on is there will be some places like corners where things need to be aligned, to the sides so that you're not obstructing a view. There may also be other places where, due to landowner preferences or leaseholder preferences, that landscaping needs to be aligned closer to the fence or closer to the affected property owner it's screening.
I think the issue is not that they were totally aware there was going to be screening. The issue is the screening's not taking place on the leased ground. It's taking place on ground that's not been leased.
Yeah, so I would definitely advise them to talk to their legal advisors. We don't have copies of their leases or enforce them. So, but I would agree that that's definitely an issue, and
Out here.
I think the other
my response
two-
would be then the fence needs to move
Hold on,
back
hold
at
on, hold on.
I think
panels.
you're listening.
The other two issues that were brought up were that where they had them flagged were underneath like power lines and stuff like that. So, just we have to take a common sense approach to it. Yes,
Exactly.
there is there's some protection for those that are not participating, but we can't sacrifice blind corners, fields that are going to continue to be farmed where solar panels are 60 acres in the back and we're putting the trees up front. Like, that doesn't make any
That's
sense.
ridiculous.
Well, and we're not requiring them to do that in that case. They can move them all the way back, or in some cases, they're not even required to have them if they've moved the panels way back to the back. If it's two farm fields side by side, there's not a screening requirement unless it's along a road. So I know they're meeting with me today to talk about some easements they've become aware of. They're aware that they can rearrange things. There's no expectation they violate an easement in their placement. But I haven't received a list of those modifications or challenge areas yet. I've had one landowner talk to me, and, I've let him know because we had previously worked out a situation that, he needs to let them know what that alternative plan was if they haven't transferred it through their internal communication. The challenge I have is when it comes to alignment of a shrub, whether it's forward or back. My ordinance says what has to be there and what general counts, but it doesn't say exactly like they have to place it X or they have to place it Y. So if they, as an applicant, bring it in whatever situation it's at, my job is to look at it and either go yes or no. So if it's in a clear sight triangle, that's a clear no. They're going to have to move it and adjust it. If it's in an easement, they're going to have to move it and adjust it. But if they've simply placed it 5 foot over from where the leaseholder wants it, then the two of them are going to need to negotiate out how it needs to be rearranged. And as long as they're still in that in between, it's not an issue with us.
So you're saying that the lease owner or landowner needs to work with Invergy to modify the location of those?
If there's alignment changes, and I'm going to go out and physically inspect and count every one of those as they go in, but I won't have any way of knowing if there's a leaseor dispute between the two, nor are we allowed to see those leases. They're all proprietary and blacked out. So we don't even know what the terms are in the leases. So I think that's one of those where they need to be communicating that as well. If we've been made aware from both sides that something's been shifted, then of course, we're going to look for that. But if we're not sure what's being discussed, we don't have a way.
Well, I
of
think what has been communicated to the group that reached out to me was that Invergy said, this is what the county's requiring, that it's right here. So what I'm hearing is that's different, and I'll pass that along.
Yeah,
I'm
have
just
them
saying we
call
have
me
to-
if there's just so we know what's out there. The one landowner I've talked to was not a group, it was just an individual.
Yeah, I talked to, a group reached out to me and.
Okay, see, I haven't had any contact from a group. What I told the individual I spoke to is, hey, I can't make them realign this, but if, being that I'm aware of it, when they talk to me, I will ask them about the property and if they've talked to you. So, we'll kind of see where that goes, but I know that they're meeting with me today and they intend to discuss some easements and things that they've become aware of.
I'm just saying, in the confines of our ordinance, let's use common sense so that we don't create other issues
Yeah.
by putting things there that in the future are gonna hinder, whether it's blind intersections, electrical right-of-ways, or the ability to farm some property that is not participating in the actual panels of the project. Because they still have to have access. They have to be able
Yes,
to load
yeah.
their trucks. They have to be able to get in and out of their fields.
So I think the ability to farm is probably the toughest one on that because they rezoned it for industrial solar. So I think the solution, I did talk to one landowner that was concerned about access, and I told him that they should talk to them about a variance that they wanted to try to eliminate all landscaping, screening a house that they also own. We told Invenergy the same thing at the beginning of the process, and they did not wish to pursue variances, but it doesn't mean they're not allowed to. In that particular case that I'm aware of, if you have agreement between the affected party and the entity, I would expect that would be something that could be discussed, but it still has to go through. The rest of it, there's nothing in the ordinance that wouldn't allow us to be flexible about
Okay.
placement. They just have to bring the requests so we
Yep.
can look at them.
I'll pass that along, so. Okay, I think that's it. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Not a problem. Thank you. And yeah, even between meetings, if there's anything else on that, it's something we're starting to actively work on. So if you can email or call if there's specific situations or locations that you're aware of a problem, we're at least tabulating a list and trying to track it so we can have conversations.
Okay. All right, we'll jump back up to, we're past the 9:20 mark, so we can open the lawn care bids.
There's 4 lawn care bids. I'll read out which company it is, but I won't go through each price because there's just so many different properties. If that's okay, I'll just leave it
Yeah,
open for
we'll just tabulate it and take it under advisement. I'm glad we got 4, because usually
Yeah,
we're
usually-
usually about 1 or 2.
Correct. All right, first one is from Warren Landscaping. Second one is from Platinum Landscaping. All right, third one is from, I think, Brightview Landscapes LLC. And last one is Smith's Lawn Care.
Do you know all of them? All 3 of them, or all 4 of them?
I believe so.
Okay, do I have a motion to take them under advisement?
Second.
Motion carries 3-0. We'll compile them and make a selection at our next meeting. If anyone wants to look at them, they'll be up here after the meeting. All right, moving on to old business. The first item we have is ordinance 2024-01, which is a handbook revision. This is mirroring something that the council did at their meeting last week. The first item is related to, the ordinance is related to, there was some discrepancy in work hours in the handbook that came out in August. And so this is cleaning it up, and I'll use, I think Rodney's here, I'll use his department as an example. There's some people that work 32, some work 35, and I believe even someone that works 37 and a half, correct? So previously, it kind of had it said Board of Health, and it had 1 hour set, and it wasn't specific because there's differences amongst the departments. So this is just cleaning that up. There will be some additional handbook items that need cleaned up, but they're still working on getting those compiled. So unless there's any questions or comments, I will entertain a motion to approve this ordinance, which I believe should be correct on the hours now, hopefully.
Second.
All right, motion carries 3-0. The next item is we have invoice for payment from Envoy for the boiler chiller. The amount is $67,893.50. However, I will make a suggestion based on conversation I had with the sheriff as well as Terry that $28,545.50 is for work at the jail. It has not been fully completed, so I would say that we withhold that amount and approve only $39,348 of this. So unless I can go into more detail if I need to, but I think they'll get it, but we need to probably hold a little bit back until it's completed, so.
I make that motion that we go ahead and forward the $39,300 some odd dollars.
48.
48.
Second.
Okay, motion carries 3-0, so we'll approve that, Britt, that amount. I will communicate with them why they're not getting the rest of it. Okay, move on to new business here. We have a couple additional items that weren't listed. I will start with those, then we'll get to the ones that are listed. The first one, and I will pass it over to Commissioner Ewitz, is a cemetery commission ordinance. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. I'll let you run through that for us.
Sure. I've talked about this a little bit in the past, and let's see. Actually, Andy would probably be the best person to describe what's going on, and he's here this morning just for that. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Andy Robertson.
Okay.
Yeah, he's our local historian and all around
A little
good
bit
guy.
of everything.
Yeah.
44 years in education. Okay. The idea of a cemetery commission, which Indiana law allows each county to do such, is basically for the preservation of the graves of our veterans, our founding fathers, our pioneers. It's like I said, it's preservation, and we in this particular county, Clinton County, we have lost two cemeteries. One in the 1960s in Perry Township, which was plowed under, and then in 1984, south of the airport over there was Young Cemetery, and obviously we can't go back and change that, but in that cemetery was a gentleman by the name of Matthias Young, who was at Valley Forge with Washington. He paid a heavy price to create this country, and now his grave's plowed under as part of a farm field. So to prevent further tragedies like that from happening in the future, we want to obviously, like I said, put some effort. We have dozens and dozens of these small pioneer cemeteries, some of them 4 graves, some of them 20 graves, but at least try to preserve this for the future. Other counties have done this, particularly Hamilton, Switzerland, and we're just putting something into motion that's going to go into the future. Hamilton County started in 1976. They just finished their last one, a year, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
So this is, it's a long-term process of, like I said, preservation. It's kind of like what, I can't help but teach some history. It's like John Quincy Adams said, in the end, we come to the realization that who we are is who we were. So, for the people that, like I said, in this county that served in the Revolution, served as veterans, in the War of 1812, the people who actually created this county, we owe this to them at least, to preserve their grave sites.
So Andy, tell me about this commission. How many members are there?
5. Indiana state law requires 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
And these will be appointed by the Board of Commissioners.
Correct.
And they'd
It's
serve-
staggering, so that way
Okay.
there's one appointed each year.
And there's some reporting they have to do each year, right, according to the ordinance?
Correct. Indiana State Historical Society receives the main report from each county. So, yes, you have to file each year.
Okay. How many cemeteries do you think there are that are not being, we had a list the other day when we talked. 80
Looking at it, and
82
of course, we
cemeteries,
need,
and there's like
need to
37?
analyze it. We're probably looking at some in more need than others. You're looking at 40 to 60, somewhere in that range.
Okay.
And so the focus of this is to, I guess, preserve to some degree, but some of them haven't been preserved, so it's bringing them
Yes.
back to life.
Correct.
Yes.
The ones that have been neglected
Right.
over
And-
time, more so
Correct.
than putting a focus on some of our current ones that are in pretty good shape. It's those
Right.
that have been neglected.
It's the ones that have been neglected. And at the same time, the focus is not to interfere with, obviously, there's churches, cemetery association. We're not interfering. We're just the ones that have pretty much been abandoned, to the townships.
Yeah. So as part of this proposed commission, we'll be working and meeting with all the township trustees at
Yes.
least once annually to make sure that they know we're not taking over anything they're doing, and we don't want to step on their toes, but we also welcome their help, and maybe
Right.
Andy and the group can have a little bit of an ability to have some public education on how to properly preserve
Right.
gravestones, because there's a specific cleaner you have to use and a specific way you have to go about preserving and restoring these things.
Right.
So it's really there's some technical aspect of it too. So
Yes.
we'll kind of get the idea is to get the wheels in motion here, and then our next step then as a Board of Commissioners will be to appoint the 5-member commission. So it'd be my suggestion to pass the ordinance today and appoint the commission at our next meeting.
Okay.
So, and we've got obviously Andy has volunteered to be part of that, and we've got a pretty good group together, I think, of local historians and folks from all over Clinton County to be part of that. So I'll be sharing that with you here pretty soon. But this is the first step in getting this rolling, and like Andy said, it'll definitely outlive me. This is something that's important, and it's a noble cause, and I'm glad to see it get rolling.
Yeah. And I think one thing when you mentioned it to us that I thought was important, and you kind of touched on it, is that you're not trying to take away from the role of the townships, but
No.
work with them.
Correct.
Correct.
And
So
there's some that have some healthy
aid them.
balances, but maybe aren't utilizing those resources towards this specific
Right.
cause, and that conversation may allow that to happen.
Yes. And one other government entity that the board, the commission would have to work with is the Department of Natural Resources.
That's correct.
Which, we would be reporting to them as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
I think it's a good cause. I'll make the motion that we go forward with the ordinance. And I appreciate the work that the two gentlemen have done so far.
Second.
All right. This is ordinance 2024-02. It's the establishment of the Cemetery Commission of Clinton County. Passes 3-0.
Thanks, Andy.
We'll just kind of sign everything at the next one. Yeah. So the second one that was not on the agenda is from Counselor Alan Dunn. It's a conflict of interest disclosure form, which his farm that he's a part of rents the county farm, which was a bid out process. And so he really only has to file this one time throughout that lease contract, but he wanted just to do it annually. So we just have it here to approve the conflict of interest, showing that he's paying cash rent for that farm.
Yeah. Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, motion carries 3-0 on the conflict of interest. All right, now to the items listed on the agenda. The first one is a estimate for AC replacement at Parkview. Chris had sent these over.
Yep.
He had, the one that he suggested was for TL Myers. It's $8,718.72, and I believe he had emailed us as well. He received a second quote that was a little higher, closer to 10,000 and some change, but they couldn't even get the work done. They weren't going to be able to do it. So I will entertain a motion to approve the TL Myers quote for AC at Parkview.
So moved.
Second.
Motion carries 3-0. The next one is for a preventative maintenance agreement for the HVAC at the jail. I'd met, as I mentioned, with the sheriff and Terry. They had brought these up. We had three options Terry had brought to us. The first one is from QPH for $5,535. That is a 1-year agreement, annual amount. And then there's two from Carrier Services. The first one on a 1 year is $3,018.33, and then if we would sign, I apologize, that's for a 3-year agreement. And if we would do just a 1 year, it's $2,975. The input I received and the recommendation from Terry was QPH. One, because we work well with them. They're a quality company. Nothing against Carrier, but there was some concerns with what would be received in this quote for that amount, that it could be additional and would probably be closer to the 5,500 that QPH was, and his comfort level was with this company. So I would take that recommendation personally as the choice here.
For sure. I'll make a motion, we approve the preventive maintenance quote with QPH for the jail HVAC.
I'll second that.
All right, motion carries 3-0. Will you let him know, Sheriff? Okay, we'll get it signed and get you a copy so I can send it to him. So. Okay, next item also came from the council meeting last week, as they continue to work through some of the HR items and handbook changes and salary ordinance. There was the creation of a committee. I think the name is maybe a little misleading, Job Classification and Compensation Committee. However, they're looking at if there's a request to change the classification, the process, creating a process so it kind of goes through this committee first and then comes to the commissioners or council, as well as changing to a job description. So we have one appointment. There's 3 counselors on there and 1 commissioner. Do we have anyone that is interested in doing that? It's handling some of just the internal HR items. So I'll do it if no one wants to.
I'll nominate
All
Jordan.
right, short straw it is.
Congratulations.
Yeah, something like that. Okay. I'll write that down, Brett. I'm on the committee now. Okay, next item is the library appointment.
Mrs. Pluhar?
Yes.
I'll make a motion, we appoint Mrs. Pluhar to the Frankfurt, right?
Second.
Yes,
Frankfurt
yes.
Library.
Yep. So she, motion carries 3-0, a little bit more. She replaced someone else. That term ends February 29th, so now she will be appointed to that new term starting over there. So we will sign that as well. The last item under new business that I have is the sign placement request from the Zonta Club of Frankfurt for their chicken noodle and dinner in Country Store. It is, the date of the event is March 9th, and they would like it to be placed up there for 20 days and off by the 12th of March.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, motion carries 3-0 for sign placement request. Any other new business from you, gentlemen? Okay. We'll move on to department heads. Do we have any department heads? Rodney?
Gentlemen, I just wanted to come for you. I have a part-time position that's grant funded that we had open up due to promoting that individual to a full-time position, and so I just wanted to seek permission to refill that.
job description?
Yes.
All right. No changes to it or anything?
No.
All right.
All right. Thank
Yeah. Good.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
All right. Motion. Thanks. Any others? Okay. I'll move on to commissioner reports. Start here. Gentlemen, have anything?
I have none.
None?
No.
Okay, guess I'll go a little bit. I don't have anything county government related, but I do want to mention this because I think it's important that we celebrate some successes, especially within our youth. And I mentioned it at our last meeting with the Clinton Central girls, who had a heartbreaking loss over the weekend, but set the school record with wins, I believe, with 25, went 25-2. Unbelievable game for anyone that watched or went to it. Just heartbreaking, lost on a last-second shot, but it was right there for them. So congratulations to them and all their effort. And then I also want to mention we had Noah Weaver from Rossville, who's a junior, who won the state championship at 190 pounds in wrestling and had an unbelievable record at 50-0. And so I think it's important, and I'm sure I'm missing some other youth sports-related events that have had success in the county, but these are ones people tell me about or I read. So if you're watching, don't be upset at me. Feel free to reach out. I'll be glad to mention it. But I think it's important because sports teach so much about teamwork, leadership, and how to persevere through challenges. And those are all things that are applicable to life, whether you're in a role like this or just working. And so I think it's important that we bring that to light for those kids, as they've worked really hard and had a lot of success.
Well said.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to our claims. We have a Board of Health claim from 2/9 in the amount of $970.20. We have a claim dated February 9th in the amount of $9,822.48. We have a claim dated February 16th in the amount of $4,860.89. And then I'm going to move on to our court claim, which is February 20th in the amount of $20,394.50. Do we have a motion to approve those claims?
Motion to approve claims.
Second.
All right, motion carries 3-0. And then we have a bi-weekly claim, which was originally in the amount of $953,491.38. There was one claim that I had a question that I'd like to table. It was for $30. It was for, I know it seems like a minuscule amount, but it was for some travel and payment for the chamber luncheon for a non-county employee. So I want to hold off on that one if we could table it, which would turn the amount to $953,461.38.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, motion carries 3-0 on that amount, so we'll table that specific claim, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the last one is payroll dated January 26th in the amount of $538,142.35. Do I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Second.
Motion carries 3-0 on the payroll. We did not have minutes this time. They'll be at our next meeting. Our next meeting is on March 5th. Is there any other business that needs to come before the Commissioner Sheriff? Yep.
I sent two positions, a supervisory position at the courthouse and a training supervisor position at the jail. And I just wanted to know if those were approved so we can take care of the financial part of that.
I had heard that, I thought there were some changes Ashley wanted to make versus the one that Wagner had approved. Is that incorrect?
On the job description?
Yeah.
I let Cecily know that we need to go through all of our individual, like all of the job descriptions, because there were some discrepancies across some of the jail stuff. He's referring to the two that were new, the changes made that didn't get in the salary ordinance correctly.
So,
They couldn't until they came here.
so you're okay with the
So-
ones that Wagner, that we sent out, that, because you sent me the Word file that had kind of bullet points, and Wagner formatted it to kind of the job description format.
Yeah, these were the two specific, the court
Yeah.
security supervisor and the training
Sorry, Supervisor.
I mean, we'll approve the two that we saw. I just want to I had understood that you guys weren't okay with how they were. There was some discrepancy. So I want to make sure we get it right.
Yeah, those two should be fine.
Okay.
Those two are fine.
Okay.
Just referring to all.
Some other ones. Okay. All right. So we can approve, if you guys are willing
So
to.
moved.
Okay. So we'll approve the two that Wagner had sent us for the job descriptions for.
Thank you, and thanks for stopping at the sheriff's office and talking with maintenance and the approvals of that. That project through Envoys, we're sitting at we're hitting over 2 years now. And so I appreciate that, and I'm sure that when people don't get their money, they start showing up. So
Yep.
thank you very much
Yep.
for that. Appreciate the support. Thank you.
Any other? Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right.
Sorry, I don't know if you had something else.
Nope.
you were gonna
That's it. Thank you. Adjourn.
Yeah, it's on its way already.
Said enough.
The only thing on the contract
I have.
Is this your employment
Yeah.
contract?
is the pension. It's not like, it's not perfect. It's not like.
It's not that,
I
it's
just
something
say
different.
yes.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to get better.
Yep.
Okay, we're just,
So-
I can definitely correct that.